Okay guys, first of all, we will learn about listening TOEFL. Have you heard and known before? What are TOEFL PBT and TOEFL IBT? Did you know? Alright, let's check it out. I will let you know, Test of English as a Foreign Language, we known as TOEFL. TOEFL is a standardized test to measure the English proficiency of someone whose native language is not English. Before we compare both of them, I will share to you about the timelines of TOEFL. This TOEFL was first developed in 1962 by an American institution called the TOEFL National Council. Then the test started to be realized or administered in 1964. But a year later, to be precise, in 1965, the institutions that holds it is different, namely ETAS, or Educational Testing Service. Then, from 1965 to 1998, this TOEFL uses a paper-based test system, or we often know the term paper-based test, or PBT. Then, starting in 1998 until the following year, starting to use a computer-based test system, or what we know as a computer-based test, or CBT. Until finally the internet started to stabilize and was changed again to an internet-based test or IBT system. Okay, next, we compare the differences between TOEFL PBT and TOEFL IBT. First, let's recheck the differences in TOEFL PBT. TOEFL PBT is handled by local institutions. It uses paper-based tests. It is being valid for local circles only, as is appropriate for employment. And then the exam is also divided into 4 sessions, namely listening structure, writing expressions, reading comprehensions, and writing. The payment is cheaper than TOEFL IBT. It's around 500,000 rupiah. Next, we check the differences in TOEFL IBT. TOEFL IBT is handled by ITS. The center place in Indonesia, only in Jakarta. It uses internet-based test. It is being valid for international circles. It can apply to admissions, overseas college scholarships, and apply LOA. This exam is divided into 4 parts, namely reading, listening, speaking, and writing. The payment is more expensive than TOEFL PBT. It's around $190. If in rupiah, it's around from 2 million rupiah.
Okay guys, right now we will discuss about TOEFL IBT listening test. So in this occasion, I would like to explain about what is the IBT listening test, and then the question types that appear in IBT listening test, and also the examples of it. So first of all, I will explain what IBT listening test is. IBT listening test. Listening varies in its length and number of questions due to the possibility of getting unscored experimental questions. This section can range from 60 minutes and 34 questions long to 90 minutes and 51 questions long. Listening tests our English listening skills. In total, we will listen to 4 until 6 lectures and 2 until 3 conversations. Each lecture lasts 3 to 5 minutes and comes with 6 questions, while each conversation lasts about 3 minutes and comes with 5 questions. Then each audio clip only plays once. And then, here are the IBT listening question types. There are 7 main types of questions that appear in IBT listening TOEFL. The first type is detail. Here, you have to be able to understand specific pieces of factual information. And then the second type is main idea, identifying the primary purpose of the conversation or lecture. And the third type is inference, recognizing implied information. And then organization types, recognizing the relationship between different pieces of information, almost exclusively used for lectures. And for the next type is function. In function section or function questions, you have to be able to understand the reason a specific thing is said. And the next is attitude, interpreting the speaker's attitude or opinion. And for the last type is categorizing, organizing ideas from the audio into categories based on their similarities and also the differences. Next, you will have the activity time. Listen to the recording carefully and answer the question correctly.
Listen to a conversation between a student and an administrator at the university's finance office.
Hi there. Can I help you?
I really hope you can. I'm worried I'm just really worried I'm going to be in trouble.
Oh? Well, don't panic. Just relax. I'm sure we can deal with whatever's going on. What's the issue?
Well, I've received 2 separate statements about my tuition payments in the last week, and they seem to... It looks like they kind of contradict each other.
Uh-huh.
I've been a student here for 2 years, and I've never gotten any notice like this before. The language seems a little threatening, and I'm afraid that if I don't figure this out, I'll be kicked out of classes or something.
I can assure you that nobody's going to kick you out of class. We'll sort it out. Now, did you bring the letters with you?
Yep, I have them right here. The first one is similar to the reminder I get every month to make a payment, but...
Here, let me see.
It has some extra language out of the norm. There, at the bottom. It says something about penalty payments.
All right. And did you miss any payments that you know of?
No, I've never missed one.
That's strange. And what about the second notice you received?
That one says it's the final warning to make a payment, or else my enrollment will be canceled. That doesn't make any sense because it's the first warning I ever got.
Okay. Are you sure these are the only 2 notices you got in the mail from us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, then, it certainly seems like there's been an error, because if the statement were accurate, you would have received additional notices from us. Let me just look up your account in our database and see what the problem is.
Thank you so much. I'm just a little stressed out that something will go wrong with my classes.
Oh, sure. Just a moment while here we go. I think I found the problem. Did you make your last payment during a school holiday?
Sure. I think I did. I guess I made the payment during spring break. Is that a problem?
Well, you didn't do anything wrong, but it looks like there was an error in our system. The computer is supposed to automatically process payments when the offices are closed, but for some reason, your payment never went all the way through. It's still pending approval.
So why did I get only a final warning notice?
Well, I'm not completely sure, to be honest. We were coming back from a holiday, so there may have been some confusion.
Well then, what do I have to do to fix this?
Nothing at all. I'm approving the payment now and noting on your account that the error was ours. Just make your next payment on time and you won't have any more problems.
Wonderful. Thanks for taking care of this. That's a huge relief.
Alright guys, after you answered the question that I given to you, let's check your answer and see the explanation of those questions. The first question is, what problem does the student have? The correct answer is B. He received a notice that his payment was late. In this question, the option A is false friend, based on a real statement from the audio clip when the student says, I have received 2 separate statements about my tuition payments in the last week, and it looks like they kind of contradict each other. This indicates that the students did get an extra tuition statement, and that the extra statement seems wrong in some way. Both of these ideas would be consistent with receiving another student's tuition statement as indicated in A. But if you listen to the greater context in the audio track, the student actually got an additional, seemingly wrong statement for entirely different reasons. So the correct answer is B. It is not C or D. And now we move to the second question. What can be inferred about the student? After you are listening to the recording properly, you must realize that the correct answer is D. The student is worried about accidentally paying tuition twice. So the answer, neither A nor B and nor C. It's D. He is worried about accidentally paying tuition twice. Alright, now we move to details and relationship between idea questions in TOEFL IBT listening. First of all, we will learn about details questions that usually appear in TOEFL IBT listening. Detailed questions in the listening section rarely deal with the very specific information like numbers or names. Instead, they focus on those facts that you would recognize as important as you listen to the recording. These questions ask you about detail in the information that you have heard. It can be a minor detail, and you are allowed to take notes while you are listening. So make sure to write down details that you think you might forget. Often these questions ask you to identify why an aspect is essential. And the questions are usually in harmony with the main idea of the recording. Next, here are the tips to answer the detailed questions. The first step is listen carefully to specific pieces of factual information that appear in the questions. And the second one is, before you mark a final answer, revisit the main idea of the recording. And for the last tip is, make sure that your answer choice makes sense considering the main idea. And then the second one, we learn about the relationship between idea questions, or we usually call it as connecting content questions. A connecting content question asks us to complete a table based on the relationship between ideas presented in the lecture or conversation. There is typically no more than one connecting content question per lecture or conversation. Connecting content questions appear more commonly with lectures, though they occasionally appear with conversation as well. So you can recognize connecting content questions because they are accompanied by the tables. And then here are the examples of relationship between idea questions. First is, what type of age do the Y have? Place a check mark in the correct boxes. Number 2. For each phrase or description or activity below, Place a check mark in the yes or no column. Number 3. Based on information from the lecture, indicate whether the statements reflect blah blah blah. And then next we have several tips for answering the connecting content questions or relationship between idea questions. The first one is identifying the organizational structure of the lecture. And then the second one is about listen carefully for categories presented by the professor. And then the third one, write supporting ideas for each main point in the lecture while you are listening to the recording. Alright, now we are going to learn about organization questions appear in TOEFL IBT listening. So, what is organization questions? An organization question asks us about the organizational structure of a lecture or class discussion. In lectures, information may be organized in a number of ways. For example, a professor may compare and contrast two things, classify something into types, or use some other method to develop the organization of a lecture. And usually, the answer options for organization questions begin with two infinites. For example, to give an example of, or to illustrate, or by statements, for example, by emphasizing or by showing. And there is typically no more than one organization question per lecture. And this question type doesn't usually appear with conversations. So we can conclude that organization is recognizing the relationship between different pieces of information, almost exclusively used for lectures. And then, this is about the organization questions may be worded as follows. The first one is, how does the professor introduce blah blah blah? Why does the professor mention about or what points does the professor make about something? Why does the professor talk about blah blah blah? How does the professor organize the information about? And the last one is, how is the discussion organized? So here are the type of questions that usually appear in TOEFL IBT listening, especially in organization questions. And then I also have the tips for answering organization questions. There are 3 main tips. The first tip is about notice the organizational structures of the lecture. And then the second one, identify what part of lecture the question is based on. And then the last one, don't forget to listen carefully for the examples and
Next, we will learn about implication and strategy of listening sessions. Here, listening TOEFL IBT sessions. These sessions measure students' abilities to understand spoken English in academic or everyday settings. In order to succeed in an academic environment, students must be able to listen to lectures and conversations, and most importantly, to understand the information provided orally. There are 3 main implications. The first one is listening for basic comprehensions. It means students are tested whether they are able to comprehend the main idea of the lecture or conversations. The main points and important details relate to the main idea, but it's not required all the details to be comprehended. The second, listening for pragmatic understanding. It means that the students are tested whether they can understand the degree to which the speaker is certain or uncertain, and to recognize what is the speaker's purpose.
The third is to connect and combine the information flow coming from two or more sources. The first one, to understand the organizations of the provided oral informations. The second, to find the relationship between the presented ideas, compare or contrast cause or effect steps in a process. Third, to draw conclusions and make inference on what is implied in the lecture or conversations. Fourth, to connect different pieces of information presented. Fifth, to recognize introductions and conclusions in the lecture or change of topic.
Alright, now we move to TOEFL listening tips or strategies that you must pay attention in doing TOEFL IBT listening tests. An overview. First things that you have to do is pay attention to the intonation of the recording. Recognize the intonational rhythm of English. The second one, distinguish between sounds. Be able to hear and recognize the sounds in English. And third, practice paraphrasing and inferring meaning. As you listen to TOEFL lectures, conversation and audio recording in practice, and on practice tests, think about the other words the speaker could have used. And the last one is listen better by taking good notes. The fastest way to answer questions more accurately on the TOEFL listening is taking good notes. Next is TOEFL listening tips and tricks. Test taking skills. First, know the text. Second, know the questions. And the third one is understand how to approach conversations. Next is tips and tricks in timing and pacing. The total TOEFL listening section time is 41 minutes, with time allocated for the lecture and audio tracks, instructions, and answering questions. Here's the breakdown. The first one, total TOEFL listening time is 41 minutes. And time for a lecture and audio tracks is 21 minutes. The third one is time for answering question is 16.5 minutes. And time for the instruction is only 3.5 minutes. It will be more easier if you use 16 minutes 40 seconds to complete the combined number of questions from the 5 recordings in TOEFL listening sections. That's 16 and 50 seconds for the 28 questions, or about 35 seconds from questions. And also, by understanding the differences and following the TOEFL listening tips and tricks, you can make sure you are making the most of your time. So, manage your time properly in doing the TOEFL IBT listening test.
Okay, now we will practice about listening TOEFL IBT. Time is yours and good luck.
Listen to a conversation between a student and a librarian.
Hi, I'm new here. I couldn't come to the student orientation, and I'm wondering if you can give me a few quick pointers about the library. I'd really appreciate it.
Sure, I'd be glad to. What's your major area of study?
Latin American literature.
Okay. Well, over here's the section where we have language, literature, and the arts. And if you go downstairs, you'll find the history section. Generally, the students who concentrate in Latin American literature find themselves researching in the history section a lot.
You're right. I'm a transfer student. I've already done a year at another university, so I know how the research can go. I spent a lot of time in the history section. So, how long can I borrow books for?
Our loan period is a month. Oh, I should also mention that we have an interlibrary loan service. If you need to get hold of a book that's not in our library, there's a truck that runs between our library and a few other public and university libraries in this area. It comes around 3 times a week.
Hey, that's great. At my last school, it could take a really long time to get the materials I needed. So when I had a project, I had to make a plan way in advance. This sounds much faster. Another thing I was wondering is there a place where I can bring my computer and hook it up?
Sure. There's a whole area here on the main floor where you can bring a laptop and plug it in for power. But on top of that, we also have a connection for the internet at every seat.
Nice. So I can do all the research I need to do right here in the library. I'll have all the resources, all the books and information I need right here in one place.
Yep, that's the idea. I'm sure you'll need photocopiers too. They're down the hallway to your left. We have a system where you have to use a copy card, so you'll need to buy a card from the front desk. You insert it into the machine and you're ready to make copies.
How much do you guys charge?
7 cents a copy.
Oh, that's not too bad. Thanks. Where's the collection of rare books?
Rare books are up on the second floor. They're in a separate room where the temperature's controlled, to preserve the old paper in them. You need to get special permission to access them, and then you have to wear gloves to handle them, because the oils in our hands, can destroy the paper, and gloves prevent that, so we have a basket of gloves in the room.
Okay, thanks. I suppose that's all I need to know. You've been very helpful. Thanks.
Listen to a
Anytime.
conversation
Bye.
between a student and her basketball coach.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Hey, Coach. I just thought I'd stop by to see what I missed while I was gone.
Well, we've been working real hard on our plan for the next game. I've asked Susan to go over it with you before practice this afternoon, so you'll know what we're doing.
Okay.
By the way, how did your brother's wedding go?
Oh, it was beautiful. And the whole family was there. I saw aunts and uncles and cousins I hadn't seen in years.
So it was worth the trip.
Oh, definitely. I'm sorry I had to miss practice, though. I feel bad about that.
Family's very important.
Yep. Okay, I guess I'll see you this afternoon at practice then.
Just a minute. There are a couple of other things I need to tell you.
Oh, okay.
First, everybody's getting a new team jacket.
Wow, how'd that happen?
A woman who played here about 25 years ago came through town a few weeks ago and saw a game and said she wanted to do something for the team, so...
So she's buying us new jackets?
Yep.
Wow, that's really nice of her.
Yes, it is. It's great that former players still care so much about our school and our basketball program. Anyway, you need to fill out an order form. I'll give it to you now so you can bring it back this afternoon. I've got the forms from the other players, so as soon as I get yours, we can order. Maybe we'll have the jackets by the next game.
Okay.
Great. And the next thing is, Mary's transferring to another college next week. So we'll need someone to take over her role as captain for the second half of the season. And the other players unanimously picked you to take over as captain when Mary leaves.
Wow. I saw everybody this morning and nobody said a word.
They wanted me to tell you. So, do you accept?
Of course. But Susan's a much better player than I am. I'm really surprised they didn't pick her.
They think you're the right one. You'll have to ask them their thoughts.
Okay. I guess one of the first things I'll have to do as captain is make sure we get a thank you card out to the lady who's buying us the jackets.
Good idea. I have her address here somewhere.
And I'll make sure the whole team signs it.
Good. That's all the news there is. I think that's it for now. Oh, let me get you that order.